In this lesson, we're going to look at communities and adaptations. Now, we need to know what all of these keywords mean. An organism is a living thing. A population, all the organisms of one species living in a habitat. Community, the population of different species living in a habitat. And then finally, ecosystem, the interaction of a community of living organisms with the non-living parts of the environment. Interdependence. Each species depends on other species, so if the species and environmental factors are balanced, then the community is stable. Now, this diagram below represents a food web. It's a little bit confusing, but I'll go through what it means. The arrows represent the transfer of energy, so if we look over to this part where the sun is, now during photosynthesis, the energy from the sun is transferred to the plant. Now, when the grasshopper feeds on the plant, the energy from the plant is transferred to the grasshopper. What would happen if a disease caused a decrease in the number of owls? So if the owls decrease, then that means the weasel numbers would increase. Now this is because there will be less owls to feed on the weasels, so they'd be able to live long enough to reproduce. Now if you look at the shrew, the weasel feeds on shrew. That means if the number of weasels increase, the number of shrew will decrease because there are more weasels to feed on the shrew. Organisms are also affected by environmental factors. What would happen if there was a lack of water for the plants? The number of plants would decrease. This would have a knock-on effect for the grasshopper as they would have less plants to feed on, so their numbers would also decrease, which would mean spiders would have less grasshoppers to feed on, so their numbers would also decrease. This would continue with the weasel, which would have one less food source. Now we're going to move on to adaptations. So we can start with the polar bear. You need to know the adaptation and how the adaptation helps the polar bear to survive in its cold environment. It's got white fur for camouflage, a layer of fat or blubber for insulation, large feet to spread its load on the snow, fur on soles of paws for insulation and grip, strong legs for running and swimming, sharp claws and teeth to eat its prey, large size and small ears to reduce surface area relative to size to reduce heat losses. The cactus has a rounded shape which provides a reduced surface area to volume ratio to reduce water loss. It's also got a thick cuticle which also helps to reduce water loss, storage of water to withstand droughts, long roots to reach water that is deep underground, leaves reduced to spines to reduce water losses and to discourage animals from eating it, and a green stem for photosynthesis. Now onto the camel. Camels have humps which contain fat, so it doesn't insulate the whole body. Bushy eyelashes and hairline nostrils that can close to stop sand entering. Tolerance to body temperature rises, so it doesn't need to sweat. Large feet to spread load on sand.